Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Virtual Midwife Cafe, where every week I take a topic of interest and a topic that I know is of high value for you, where I cover information that you're looking for during pregnancy. And today is definitely one of those days because it is probably one of the most important decisions that you'll be making during your pregnancy, which is choosing your care provider. So who is going to monitor your health and well-being throughout your pregnancy? And there's a lot of things to consider, but I'm choosing the top five, the five that are really, really important, and that is going to help you to guide that decision. And the reason I'm talking about this today is because so often in the groups that I belong to, I see posts asking for recommendations for a doctor, which is great. It's a bit like, we ask for recommendations for a restaurant, but I've had the experience where I've been recommended a restaurant and specifically a dish in a restaurant. And I don't ask any questions about that. I think, oh, that's great. I love whatever it is that's been recommended. And I go along to that restaurant and I order it. And it comes with a really spicy sauce, which I don't like because I don't like spice. But the person who recommended that dish to me didn't know that I didn't like spice, okay? They recommended that dish because they loved it and they love spicy food. And I didn't ask enough questions to know whether or not I was going to actually enjoy it. And there may also be a case where I enjoyed the spicy dish, but the actual restaurant I found dirty, run down, not in a nice location, and that would also impact my opinion of what that restaurant was like. So I know that it's a strange metaphor, but I like using metaphors in my work because it makes you think outside of the box. Pregnancy is a life event, and what you're doing is asking for recommendations about something that is going to impact you. So it's a really, really important decision. It's a lot more important than asking for recommendations about a restaurant and a dish that you might want to be eating, but the same principles apply. So we're going to get straight to it. Okay, what are the five things that you're going to consider? The first thing is, who are you actually going to choose to look after you during your pregnancy? Are you going to go for the medical model or the midwife model? Now, if you're going for the medical model, it means that you're looking for a doctor or an obstetrician and a gynecologist. Now, most obstetricians work as gynecologists as well. That's all under the same umbrella. But understand that they have an obstetric practice and they also deal with gynecological problems that happen before and after pregnancy. So how much of their practice is dedicated to obstetrics and how much is dedicated to their gynae care that they are following up? And what is their speciality? What are their actual credentials and qualifications? So, are they board certified? Where did they train? Where did they get their qualifications, and what is their experience within that practice? How many years have they actually been in private practice? Oh, I forgot to turn on notifications. Anyway, you're going to hear lots of beeping because that didn't turn on. Turn off my notifications. So how long have they been in practice for? And how long have they been in that specific practice? Are they working independently, or is there a group of doctors that work together, which would mean that you either see the same doctor every time, or but then there's a possibility that when it gets to your birth, that doctor may be on leave, in which case one of the partners would attend your birth. So would you get to see one or all of those partners during the pregnancy so that you have an opportunity to get to know them all and see which, that you're comfortable with them all? And if you're choosing a midwife, the same things would apply. What are the credentials? Where did they study? How long have they been in practice for? And there's lots of different levels of midwives. So what are you looking for in that midwife? But are you happy with the qualifications and credentials that they have? And that's just one aspect, of course, of that. The other thing, of course, is looking at the experience, as I said, and the statistics of their practice. So in a medical practice, what is the percentage of cesarean sections that is in that particular practice? And you want them to be quite specific. They need to share that information with you. There's no reason why they shouldn't, and they should feel free to be able to share that information with you, especially if you are looking to have a natural birth. and you're going to a practice where you ask what the statistics of natural births or of C-sections are, and they share that with you, and they say that they're running at a 55 to 60% C-section rate. I mean, the World Health Organization recommends a C-section rate of between 15 and 20%, and there are some practices, especially midwifery practices, and yes, I am biased, but there are many midwife practices who run at as little as 2%, and the average is 5 to 7%. That's a huge, big difference. So depending on what kind of birth you have, you really, really, really want to look at what the statistics are of what you are looking to have from your birth. And if you're looking to have a natural birth, you would like to know that that practice has a good percentage of natural births, because you are now part of that statistic. So which one do you want to choose? And then another really, really, really important one is the bedside manner and the professionalism. And that is hugely important. And I worked with a doctor who was very, very, very popular. And the reason she was popular, not just because of she did have good qualifications and experience, and her credentials were great, but her bedside manner was amazing. She treated the woman with respect, with dignity, and her ability to communicate with them was excellent. She listened to what they wanted, and she listened to what, their desires for their birth, and she responded accordingly, and she gave them the time within a consultation. So that's the other thing you want to look at, is how professional is the practice, where it's located. In the birth world, it is not uncommon for the care provider to run late for appointments, because births are unpredictable. So there's always going to be times during your care where your care provider is late because they're attending a birth. But it's not about being late, it's about how that lateness is handled. So is there somebody on hand who can give you the heads up, so that they don't wait until you're sitting in the waiting room to say, we're very sorry, but midwife or doctor so-and-so is going to be late because they're attending a birth. So wherever possible, to be given the heads up that things are running late. And you'll understand, because in a few months' time, there's a possibility that the care provider is going to be running late because they're attending your birth. So you don't mind that. But how is it handled, and how much do they take your time into consideration? Because you're only going to get to see your care provider about 10 times during your pregnancy, and you put a lot of effort, and you put a lot of, what's the word? It's an important occasion for you. It's, you look forward to every single visit that you have with your care provider, because it's the opportunity for you to get answers to all your questions. It's an opportunity for you to get to know your care provider and to start imagining and visualizing the birth, and getting an idea of how your care provider is going to be in that moment. I mean, it's all the build up to the day that you give birth. And how is every single visit? How do you walk out feeling after a visit? Does your care provider sit down and really give you the time of day? Do they ask you how you're feeling? Do they give you an opportunity to ask questions? And do they understand that very often, especially if it's your first pregnancy, you don't know what you don't know? So for your care provider to prompt those questions, say, right, well, this is how many weeks pregnant you are. These are the things that I expect that you're experiencing. These are the things that I expect you're wanting to know more about. And very often, if you're in the medical model of care, so if you're seeing a doctor or an obstetrician, it's not necessarily their role to share a lot of antenatal information and birth preparation with you, because, as I said, they have very busy practices where they're dealing not just with obstetrics, but very often with gynae problems as well. So, if they're not going to give you the time to give you that extra information about diet and nutrition and your general well-being and a holistic approach to your pregnancy, are they referring you to people in the area who can give that to you? And the same with the midwife. If the midwife will generally spend more time with you. I know that in our practice, we give our consultations are at least an hour, whereas in a doctor's practice, they're usually 15 minutes. So we give you an hour to be able to discuss all of those things that are relevant at that stage of pregnancy when you are visiting. And for things that we don't cover, we are going to recommend that you attend a birth preparation class. And we really share with you the importance of attending a birth preparation class and how being prepared will impact your birth experience. So in those 10 visits that you have with your care provider, whether it's with an obstetrician and a gynecologist or whether it's with a midwife, you need to be very clear about what it is that you want to get from that relationship. And you want to get the benefit of their experience and expertise, which is managing your pregnancy, and if it's a low-risk pregnancy, maintaining that all those low-risk factors and ensuring that no high-risk factors occur. If you're a high-risk pregnancy, making sure that the factors that make that are relevant in your high-risk pregnancy are being dealt with accordingly. And then also looking at all the other aspects, because remember that pregnancy is not an illness, it is a life event. So we want to make sure that every aspect of your pregnancy is being maintained. You know, your physical well-being, your mental well-being, your spiritual well-being, your emotional well-being, your relationship with your partner. And communication is vital in that relationship. You know, is your doctor taking enough time to maybe notice that you're not managing that well, or something is going on in your life that is possibly impacting your pregnancy or the way that you're managing your pregnancy? What's going on in your relationship? Is there a possibility that you need to be referred for some relationship counseling? Every single one of those aspects impacts the way that you experience your pregnancy and ultimately the way that you're going to experience your birth. And as I said, that relationship is all about building up to the point of your birth, and in that time helping you to navigate all the different choices and decisions that you're going to be faced with, so that by the time you get to 34, 35 weeks, you're really clear about what kind of birth you want to have, who you're going to have with you in your birth, and how you're going to manage everything. And you've got your birth team, really you're clear about who's going to be with you, midwife, doctor, doula. You've done your birth preparation and you feel really confident going into your labor. So that 36 weeks, you're looking forward to giving birth, and you know that your care provider is going to support and respect all the things that you hope for your birth, whether that's natural or C-section. I personally respect all choices, but I respect informed choices. So obviously, there's a lot more to it than that, but to sum it up, you want to know what their credentials and qualifications are, the statistics of their practice and how the practice works, if it's one person, a partnership, or a group of doctors or midwives, how their bedside manner and just general level of professionalism is, especially when it comes to your appointments and booking and following up with those appointments, and then the communication and their ability to communicate. And obviously, you're going to take all of that in and also check in with yourself. How do you intuitively feel? Does this feel like a good match to you? Do you feel like this is a person that you feel comfortable not handing over, but being in a two-way relationship where you are inviting them into your space of your pregnancy and birth, which is one of the most important times of your life. And that person is somebody that you're going to remember forever. It's a really important decision. I know that the births that I've attended, I can bump into those people 15, 20 years later. And it's a special bond because it's a real privilege to be invited into that sacred space of pregnancy, and specifically into that really vulnerable space of birth, where we are with you in those really intimate and vulnerable moments of your life. And you know, who you choose to have in that space is very important. And it's not just to do with credentials and experience. There's so much more to it than that. And it's not necessarily what works for your friend or your a relative is not necessarily what is going to work for you, because you don't know what that person wanted and what was important to them, and is it the same as what is important to you. Your pregnancy and birth is a very, very personal journey. It's a personal decision, and you need to be clear about what it is that you want and why you want it. And you don't need to explain or justify it to anybody else. Whatever your choice is your choice, and you have very good reasons for that. And don't be afraid or don't feel pressured into making a choice in those early weeks of pregnancy. Your early weeks of pregnancy are about exploring all those choices and options and seeing what's out there and seeing what's available. And specifically in the geographical location where you are, what is the care that is available? Will it be the medical model? Will it be the midwife model? Will it be a combination? And shop around just the same as you would for anything else that's really, really important in your life. So thank you so much to Sally, Marina, and Lorette for joining me. If you do have any questions, just pop them in so that I can answer them here. If you can't think of anything at the moment, then and you want to pop it in later, then please do that. And I hope that that's given you some insight into choosing your care provider. And I hope that you saw that article that I posted the other day of a lady who'd had 3 or 4 babies and had changed care providers with all 3 of her first pregnancies, and ended up having good experiences because she trusted her instinct and because she knew what she was looking for. And when something happened that was like a red flag, she said, I'm not happy with this, and it's not okay. So when there's a red flag moment like that with your care provider, listen to that red flag and explore other options, because especially when it comes to a doctor relationship, they're not your friend. You're paying them for a service, and they're a professional, and that's why it needs to be a professional relationship. But that doesn't mean that you can't move around and find somebody else. So I don't see any questions, and I don't like to go on for too long because this is something that I can talk about forever. But I do hope that it has been of value to you, and I hope that it's made you think. And like I say, it's not something that you can just decide like that. Just shop around and find what works for you. And if you need any help and you want to book a call, then I have got the link in the comments section.